Good morning. My name is Clinton Dishman. This is the second blog in a series of blogs to help educate people who suffer with or have interaction with people who have OCD. Again, I am doing these in the hopes to help everyone, in a sense, better understand the day in and day out life of an OCD sufferer. So in today's blog, I kind of want to talk about what is OCD. There's a lot of thoughts and misconceptions of what it is. If you were to Google OCD, it will bring up a bunch of different examples and what symptoms and what defines OCD. I'm not one for going by the status quo, and also I would rather just give you a personal aspect of what it is. But let's go ahead and define OCD. So, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, to better break that down for you to understand, everyone has obsessive thoughts. Everyone has compulsive behaviors. Whether it be cleaning, how things are organized, color-coded, just anything that a person may be compulsive about or obsessed about, that does not mean you have OCD. Obsessive compulsive disorder is when those obsessions and compulsive behavior interrupt the sufferer's day-to-day lives, pretty much controls it. So, with that, I want you to understand that, number one, I'll say one of the most frustrating things for me is when I hear, "Oh, they're being OCD again." It's a very, and I understand that it's not meant in a disrespectful manner, and I understand that people just don't understand what it is, and years of dealing with it, I've had the run of the mill, per se, with the comments, remarks. "Oh, I have OCD. I have, my house has to be clean." That's not OCD. You just like a clean house, and that's good quality. It's great, but that's not OCD. "Oh, I have to buy all these shoes." No, you just like shoes. Or, "Oh, I have to always go out and buy a brand new album." Well, great, you love music. That doesn't make you an OCD sufferer. A person with OCD, when the obsessive thoughts come in, the compulsive behavior actually takes up time within a person's day. They have to perform a ritual or a set of procedures in order to progress with their day. For example, in order for me to go to bed at night, I have a certain set of sequences or ticks, checks, whatever you want to call it, regarding making sure that every door in my house is locked, window, and everything else. And if these are not performed, I cannot go to bed. They used to be far worse in the aspect of I actually was breaking door handles. It takes about a half hour on average for me to go to bed, as well as to leave for work. There are times, one of my rituals is as I'm leaving my house to go to work, I stop, I watch my garage door close, I drive down the street, go to the stop sign, turn, then flip a U-turn, come back and verify again that my garage door is actually shut. And this is an everyday thing. Anytime that my family and I go on a trip, I have to get verification that the garage door is shut and that all the doors are locked and everything else. I've learned to better cope with this by having my wife go behind me and verify that everything is in fact the way it needs to be in order for us to leave. But this is just one example as to how it interferes with an individual's life. OCD sufferers have the irrational and rational part of their brains are constantly at battle. Now, that's the best way, really, for me to describe it. It's like a mental war that is occurring that just it's an exhausting thing. It really, really is. With OCD, our minds just don't. When we obsess about something, it consumes us, and by consume I mean it takes over our lives for that period of time in which that obsessive thought exists. And also, it's an everyday aspect. And once we are focused on something, we cannot focus really on anything else until that obsessive thought is gone. It's like going to work. When I go to work, I'm focused solely on work. Everything else doesn't matter. I don't care what's going on at home. I don't care what's going on within the office. I care about my job, my duties. That's it. Nothing else matters. Doesn't sound like a bad quality, but the problem is that we're so focused that social interaction and anything that interrupts what we're doing is frustrating, and very aggravating. One big thing about people with OCD is that when we are focused, or we're in the middle of a ritual per se, or a process, when we're interrupted, it makes us angry, and it really does. And the reason for that is because we follow a very set guidelines of steps that we take in our everyday, day-to-day activity. And some people find it humorous to mess with people with OCD. Like, for instance, at my last job that I had, my desk is always set up a certain way. I know where everything is. Everything has a place. Everything's in order. Everything's symmetrical. When I look at my desk like that, it makes it easier for me to ease into my workday. Well, people would find it funny to mess things up on my desk. I never made a big deal about it because I understand that people don't understand OCD. But it is actually an extremely aggravating thing to us. It may seem petty. It may seem completely irrational, but to us, it's chaotic. They would move things, disorganize things, and the thing is that we're so process and procedure that we know when the slightest thing's been moved. And so we're really good with details and analysis and finding things because we are so every little detail, fine point, we latch onto, we incorporate into our processes and procedures. And so, if you, for those of you who don't suffer it, if you notice that when you interrupt someone with OCD, they get frustrated or get angry about that, it's not that they're necessarily angry with you. They're angry because their process is being interrupted. And what I want people to understand is that these processes and procedures actually bring us, in a sense, peace. One of the things I had expressed is that when I go to work, I'm solely focused on work. That is an actual release for me. It's a place where I'm not dealing with intrusive thoughts. I'm not dealing with other things. I'm dealing with my job, and it actually is. It's very peaceful. People think, "Oh, you hate your job and this and that." I love to work. It's one time when that chaotic mind of mine can focus in on something and not be interrupted. Some of the worst times for a person with OCD is alone time, or when we're not active. And that's because our minds are just going constantly, and with varying degrees of thoughts. We have intrusive thoughts, we have negative thoughts, happy thoughts, but they're all just jumbled. A big aspect of what hurts a person or hinders a person with OCD is that we're fully aware that there's a rational and irrational part of our mind. We are fully aware that the behaviors that we have, such as the checks, the systematic approach to a lot of things that we do, are viewed as different, weird, extreme. And for a lot of sufferers, we can't explain to people why these checks, systems, processes are so important to us. Because when we do, people kind of just give us a blank stare like, okay, you're crazy. But that's the thing that I really want people who don't suffer to understand, is that these attributes also are what make us so meticulous and detail oriented and logical and rational, because we are dealing with such an irrational part of my mind that we are consumed with finding logic and rationality in everything that we do. We are looking for structure. We thrive on structure and protocol, and the reason for that is it's because it's sustained, it's in place, it's a routine that brings us ease. It really does. It really allows us to be able to feel a breath of fresh air, as to say. I guess for those who don't understand when I'm saying there's an irrational and rational part of the mind, I had written a blog on Facebook describing kind of an experience as a child that I dealt with. I was very scared of everything as a kid. And then to separate normal childhood fears and being scared of the dark or something like that, to a child who suffers with OCD, the difference is the approach, the logic, and rationale of the fear that is being manifested. The example I used was as a young boy, about 9 or 10. I don't remember exactly how old I was. I was convinced I was a robot. Sounds funny, hilarious, but it was actually terrifying to me. And some of the logic that I used to, I guess, intensify this fear was when I would look up and move my eyes back and forth, it felt like gears ticking. I would also, when you hear that buzzing in your ears, I would be like, oh, it was like a circuit or a wire or something going off. It took me somewhere in the ballpark of 2 to 3 months to overcome this fear, which, again, sounds funny, but it was actually really stressful for me. And there was many other situations, but that's the difference, is that it consumed my life every day. I was convinced, constantly asking, how do you know I'm not a robot? How do you know I'm not this? How do you know I'm not that? And it was just when a fear manifested itself, it took over. And I would perform rituals that, number one, either prove or disprove my logical reason as to why I thought at that moment in time that this fear was indeed real. As an adult, the fears so much aren't as prevalent as just the obsessive and tunnel vision that I suffer with. This makes this causes a lot of problems in relationships and just day-to-day interaction with people. When a person with OCD is focused, there is an uncanny focus. An uncanny may not be the best word to describe it, but when we are focused on something, it is our everything. When I was in college, graduating and getting good grades was my focus, along with working my job. It was my focus. Both had to succeed. I didn't care if I was exhausted. I didn't care if I was spending time with my family. I didn't care about anything else except achieving those goals. Now, these don't sound like necessarily negative attributes, but I would wear myself down to exhaustion. I'd be sleeping 2-3 hours a night because I was so focused on my tasks. And this went on for 6 years, mind you. And yes, I did graduate and did well, but I couldn't see and interact with everything else that was going around me. When I make a mistake, I beat myself up internally, obsessively. It's become a ritual to where I beat myself up so much so that way I will not do the same mistake again. And sometimes even to the point where I will avoid certain tasks to ensure that I don't make those mistakes. One, for instance, that I've done and has caused me grief is, since I have I'm not good with social interaction. I'm not good with standard social conversation. And sometimes I would say things and not mean anything disrespectful or rude by them, but being a very blunt person and black and white and dry, people would interpret things wrong. So to avoid that and avoid confrontation or anything that would disrupt my workflow, I just wouldn't talk to people. Well, that cost me my job. My last job was because of my inability to socialize with my coworkers. I wasn't rude. Say good morning, yes ma'am, I would help the team out, but I didn't partake in the jokes, in the the standard social, I guess you'd say, acceptable behavior. I would do the little good morning, nice to see you, yes ma'am, yes sir, whatever, but I would go straight to my desk and I would work. If things were getting too loud to where I would focus on my work, I would put my earbud in and listen to my music so I could focus on my work. Again, a lot of people don't think that this is, it may not sound that bad, but when you actually see it, a lot of people interpret that as being rude, or that we don't like people, or we don't like our job, or we don't like, things that really aren't going through our head. What went through my head was, I know I'm poor at conversation. I know I can't crack jokes. I know I'm not, a lot of jokes that people throw at me are going to go over my head because it's just not the way my mind operates. And with that, it caused me to be viewed as not a team player and not that I didn't like the individuals I worked with. And I had touched on this in my last conversation, but that's the thing with people with OCD, is that if we've made a mistake or if something's caused a conflict, we will do whatever we can to steer clear of that conflict, because we don't like conflict. Conflict is chaos, and chaos needs to be controlled. Therefore, we're going to do whatever we can to control that chaotic aspect or that mistake that we made. And again, we're extremes, black and white, no gray. So when I say something that's misinterpreted, what am I going to do? I'm just not going to say anything. I know I have to be cordial in the workplace, but I won't partake in any social conversations because I don't want that chaos to become prevalent again. And this is for a lot of OCD people. For instance, large crowds. They make me extremely nervous, bring my anxiety to a high point, and get me angry quick. What do? I avoid them. I avoid big big gatherings in general, because there's so much going on. Again, a big aspect of OCD, control. Because of the chaos and obsession, obsessive thoughts and everything, compulsive behavior, control is something that we're very, very keen on. Not so much with other people, just more with ourselves. And when we get into situations where it feels like it's absolute chaos, it frightens us. It causes us anxiety because we can't process what's going on. We can't find the rationale. Lots of noise, lots of chaos ends up causing us just insurmountable amounts of anxiety. And in some situations, like where I used to drink, that's how I would have to, what I'd have to do in order to be social. I would have to drink alcohol to bring me down to that level where I wasn't dwelling on the obsession. But then that just brought on a whole new aspect of issues and problems. So to kind of wrap this conversation up for the day, the thing that people really, both OCD sufferers and individuals dealing with them, is you got to understand is that our minds are wired differently. What people who don't suffer with OCD may view as rude, antisocial, doesn't make sense in their behavior and the way that they're approaching a situation. To us, it's how we are coping with what is transpiring in our minds. And I really want, first of all, to let people with OCD understand that not every people aren't going to get it. Even trying to explain it, I don't know if I did a wonderful job or not, but that doesn't mean that you're any less of a productive person in society. In fact, again, like I stated, it allows us to be very detail oriented, to analyze things, and as we get into our groove, we can do some phenomenal things. For those dealing with it, really take a step back and evaluate if the behavior that you're seeing, especially if you're aware that the person has OCD, if what they're doing is it because they're trying to be productive and they're trying to look for that control in the situation, rather than going automatically to they're rude, they're disrespectful, they're antisocial, they don't like us. Because again, you got to understand that that's not the way our minds operate. We don't look at things from a like or dislike perspective all the time. We're not seeking popularity. 9 times out of 10, we're seeking peace of mind. So to end this video, again, as I said I was going to, I just really want people to dig in and really start analyzing, what they're seeing, and try to realize that although our minds are going at 1,000,000 miles a minute, we have a lot to offer. And also for the sufferer to realize that, hey, the best thing that you can do, truly, and I did it, and yes, I lost my job and got burned, but you need to be honest about your OCD. You need to accept it. You need to try to explain it. And the reason I emphasize this is because you're not going to be able to explain it in its entirety. You're not going to be able to print out definition of what you suffer with, and it's going to completely encapsulate everything that you suffer with. Every sufferer suffers from different aspects. But the more aware people are, the more they're going to think about what's really transpiring. Unfortunately, some people are just going to, if they don't understand it, they're going to run from it. But as long as you're honest and as long as you're straightforward with what you have, you're at least trying to breach that misinterpretation between parties. Like, that's what I call it. So that's it for today on this blog. Again, I would, for those of you out there, if you'd like to share this, I'd appreciate it. If people have questions, please leave them on my channel, or find me on my Facebook, Clint Dishman, and feel free to ask me questions. Some of this, it's hard for me to try and calculate everything and not bore you to death in these blogs, but I really hope that these reach out to people and start bringing an awareness to what OCD is, and helping people understand that, number one, you can live a prosperous and productive life, and number two, the people that don't suffer with, don't judge. Try to understand, and maybe if you can't understand, just accept it. Anyways, that's it for today. I will post again, and let's keep going down this journey together. Thank you. Have a nice day.